The check-in. The rain poured relentlessly as the couple, Emma and Jack, pulled into the parking lot of the Grand Eterna Hotel. The building loomed before them, its towering structure disappearing into the stormy clouds above. The neon sign flickered weakly, casting an eerie glow on the slick pavement. They had been driving for hours, lost on a back road, when the hotel appeared like a mirage in the middle of nowhere. Exhausted and desperate for shelter, they decided to check in. The lobby was grand yet unsettling. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling so high it was barely visible, and the walls were adorned with intricate, almost hypnotic patterns. The air smelled faintly of lavender and something metallic. Behind the polished mahogany desk stood a concierge with a too-wide smile and eyes that seemed to follow them no matter where they moved. "Welcome to the Grand Eterna," the concierge said, his voice smooth but unnervingly cheerful. "How many nights will you be staying?" "Just one," Emma replied, glancing at Jack. He was staring at the patterns on the wall, his brow furrowed as if trying to decipher a code. "Excellent," the concierge said, handing them a key with the number 314 engraved on it. "Your room is on the 3rd floor. The elevator is just over there." As they walked toward the elevator, Emma noticed the other guests. A man in a Victorian suit was reading a newspaper that seemed to be written in an alien language. A woman in a ball gown was humming a tune that made Emma's head ache. And then there was the child, a little boy with no eyes, playing with a toy that moved on its own. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and they stepped inside. The buttons on the panel went up to 100, but as Emma pressed the button for the 3rd floor, she noticed something strange. The numbers seemed to shift, as if they were alive. She blinked, and the panel returned to normal. Their room was luxurious but unsettling. The wallpaper had a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer, and the mirrors reflected the room at odd angles. Jack collapsed onto the bed, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Did you see those people in the lobby?" she asked. Jack nodded. "Yeah, they were weird, but we're only staying one night. Let's just get some sleep." As Emma unpacked, she found a brochure on the nightstand. It read, "Welcome to the Grand Eterna, where every floor is a new adventure. Explore our infinite amenities and discover the impossible." She frowned. Infinite floors? That had to be a typo. But when she looked out the window, the parking lot was gone. Instead, she saw a sprawling cityscape that stretched endlessly in every direction. The buildings twisted and turned in ways that defied physics, and the sky was a swirling mix of colors she couldn't name. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling. "Something's not right." He joined her at the window and stared in silence. "We need to get out of here," he finally said. They grabbed their bags and rushed to the elevator. But when the doors opened, it wasn't the lobby they saw. It was another floor, one that looked nothing like the 3rd. The walls were made of glass, and beyond them was an underwater world filled with glowing sea creatures. A sign on the wall read, "Floor 314, the Aquatic Pavilion." Emma pressed the lobby button repeatedly, but the elevator didn't move. Instead, a voice chimed, "Please enjoy your stay on floor 314. Jack grabbed her hand. "We'll take the stairs." But when they found the stairwell, it was a spiral that seemed to go on forever, both up and down. The steps shifted and rearranged themselves as they tried to descend, leading them back to the same floor no matter which direction they went. They were trapped. The Aquatic Pavilion. Emma and Jack stood at the edge of the Aquatic Pavilion, their breaths shallow as they took in the surreal sight before them. The floor was a vast, glass-enclosed space filled with water that shimmered in hues of blue and green. Schools of bioluminescent fish darted through the water, their movements hypnotic. Coral reefs stretched into the distance, and strange, otherworldly creatures floated lazily in the currents. The air was humid and carried the faint scent of salt water. "This can't be real," Emma whispered, pressing her hand against the glass. It felt cold and solid, but the world beyond it seemed to defy logic. "How is this even possible?" Jack shook his head, his face pale. "I don't know, but we can't stay here. We need to find a way back to the lobby." They began to walk along the glass corridor, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. The floor seemed endless, with no visible exits. As they walked, they noticed strange details. A clock embedded in the coral that ticked backward, a door made of seaweed that seemed to breathe, and a sign that read, "Dive in, the water is fine," in glowing letters. "Maybe we missed something," Emma said, stopping to examine a peculiar console embedded in the wall. It had a series of buttons and a small screen that displayed cryptic symbols. She pressed one of the buttons, and the screen lit up with the words, "Select your destination." Jack leaned over her shoulder. "What do you think it does?" "I don't know, but it might be our only way out of here," Emma replied. She pressed another button, and the screen changed to display a list of options: Coral Garden, Abyssal Trench, Sunken City, Return to Lobby. "Return to Lobby," Jack exclaimed. "That's it. Press that one." Emma hesitated. "What if it's a trick? What if it takes us somewhere worse?" "Do we have a choice?" Jack countered. She pressed the button, and the floor beneath them shuddered. The glass walls began to shift, and the water beyond started to drain away. The fish and coral dissolved into mist, and the corridor transformed into a dimly lit hallway with peeling wallpaper and flickering lights. A sign on the wall read, "Floor 666, the Forgotten Wing." Emma groaned. "This isn't the lobby." Jack clenched his fists. "This hotel is playing games with us. We need to figure out the rules." They walked down the hallway, which seemed to stretch on forever. The doors they passed were all slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of bizarre scenes. A room filled with clocks ticking at different speeds, a dining table set for a feast with no guests, and a library where the books floated in midair. The air grew colder with each step, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the walls. Finally, they reached a dead end. A single door stood before them, its surface covered in intricate carvings of twisting vines and strange symbols. A plaque above the door read, "The Keeper's Office." "Do we knock?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Before Jack could answer, the door creaked open on its own. Inside was a small, cluttered room filled with stacks of papers, strange artifacts, and a single desk. Behind the desk sat an elderly man with a long white beard and piercing blue eyes. He wore a suit that seemed to shimmer like the walls of the aquatic pavilion. "Ah, visitors," the man said, his voice warm but tinged with something unsettling. "I am the keeper. How may I assist you?" "We need to get out of here," Jack said firmly. "This hotel it's not normal. We just want to leave." The keeper smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Leave? But you've only just arrived. The Grand Eterna has so much to offer. Infinite floors, infinite wonders. Why would you want to leave?" "Because it's a trap," Emma said, her voice rising. "We can't get back to the lobby. The elevator and stairs don't work. We're stuck." The keeper leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Ah, I see. You've encountered one of the hotel's quirks. But fear not, there is a way out. However, it requires solving the hotel's mysteries. Each floor holds a clue, and each clue brings you closer to the exit." Jack frowned. "What kind of clues?" The keeper's smile widened. "That is for you to discover, but I will offer you this piece of advice. Pay attention to the details. Nothing in the Grand Eterna is as it seems." Emma exchanged a glance with Jack. "So we just have to keep exploring? What if we get stuck on another floor?" The keeper's expression darkened. "Then you may become permanent guests. But I have faith in you. You seem resourceful." Before they could ask more questions, the keeper waved his hand, and the door slammed shut. When they turned around, the hallway was gone. They were back in the aquatic pavilion, standing in front of the console. Emma sighed. "I guess we don't have a choice." As they approached, they noticed that the statues seemed to follow them with their eyes. The air grew heavier, and the silence was deafening. When they reached the lighthouse, they found a door with a lock shaped like a fish. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out a small key she had found earlier in their hotel room. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now it seemed to fit perfectly. She inserted the key and turned it, and the door creaked open. Inside was a single pedestal with a glowing orb resting on top. As they stepped closer, the orb began to pulse with light, and a voice echoed through the room. "Congratulations, you have found the first clue. The exit lies beyond the infinite, but only the brave can reach it." The orb dissolved into light, and the room began to collapse around them. Emma and Jack grabbed each other's hands as the floor gave way, and they fell into darkness. The clockwork garden. Emma and Jack tumbled through the darkness, their screams swallowed by the void. For a moment, there was nothing but the sensation of falling, the air rushing past them, and the faint glow of the orb's light fading into the distance. Then, with a sudden jolt, they landed on something soft and unyielding. The darkness lifted, and they found themselves in a place that defied all logic. They were in a garden, but not like any garden they had ever seen. The ground was a patchwork of gears and cogs, clicking and whirring as they shifted beneath their feet. The trees were made of polished brass, their leaves delicate clock hands that ticked in unison. Flowers with petals shaped like tiny clocks bloomed in vibrant colors, their faces displaying different times. In the distance, a massive clock tower loomed, its hands spinning wildly in both directions. Emma sat up, her head spinning. "Where are we now?" Jack helped her to her feet, his eyes scanning the bizarre landscape. "I think this is the clockwork garden. Look at the sign." A wrought iron sign stood nearby, its letters etched in elegant script. "Floor 999, the clockwork garden. Time is an illusion. Find the key to unlock the next mystery." Emma groaned. "Another key? How many of these are we going to have to find?" Jack shrugged. "As many as it takes to get out of here. Let's just focus on this floor for now." They began to explore the garden, their footsteps echoing against the metallic ground. The air was filled with the rhythmic ticking of countless clocks, creating a symphony of sound that was both mesmerizing and unnerving. As they walked, they noticed that the clock hands on the trees and flowers seemed to react to their presence, turning to face them as they passed. "Do you think this place is alive?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack shook his head. "I don't know, but I do know that we need to find that key. Let's head toward the clock tower. It seems like the most obvious place." As they approached the tower, they noticed a series of pathways branching off in different directions. Each path was marked with a sign indicating a different time: past, present, future, and timeless. Emma frowned. "Which one do we take?" Jack hesitated. The keeper said to pay attention to the details. Maybe the key is hidden in one of these paths. They decided to start with the path marked past. As they walked, the garden around them began to change. The brass trees grew older, their surfaces tarnished and covered in moss. The clock hands on the flowers slowed, eventually stopping altogether. The air grew heavy with the scent of decay, and the ticking of the clocks faded into silence. At the end of the path, they found a small gazebo made of rusted metal. Inside was a table with a single object, an old, weathered pocket watch. Emma picked it up and examined it. The face was cracked, and the hands were frozen at 3:17. "Do you think this is the key?" she asked. Jack took the watch and turned it over in his hands. "Maybe, but it's broken. Let's try the other paths." They returned to the main pathway and chose the one marked present. This time, the garden remained unchanged, but the ticking of the clocks grew louder, almost deafening. At the end of the path, they found a mirror framed by clock hands. When they looked into it, their reflections were distorted, their features shifting and blurring as if time itself was unraveling. Emma stepped back, unnerved. "This isn't helping. Let's try the next one." The path marked future led them to a garden filled with sleek, futuristic designs. The trees were made of polished chrome, and the flowers glowed with an otherworldly light. The clock hands moved erratically, spinning in circles or jumping forward in sudden bursts. At the end of the path, they found a holographic display showing a countdown, 10 minutes. Jack frowned. 10 minutes until what? Emma shook her head. "I don't know, but I don't like it. Let's check the last path." The final path, marked timeless, was unlike the others. The garden here was frozen in place, the trees and flowers perfectly still. The air was cold and silent, and the ground beneath their feet felt like solid ice. At the end of the path, they found a pedestal with a small, ornate key resting on top. Emma reached for the key, but as soon as her fingers touched it, the garden around them began to shift. The clock tower in the distance let out a deafening chime, and the countdown on the future path reached 0. The ground beneath them trembled, and the pathways began to collapse. "Run!" Jack shouted. They climbed as fast as they could, the tower shaking violently beneath them. When they reached the top, they found themselves on a platform overlooking the entire garden. The view was breathtaking, but there was no time to admire it. A voice echoed through the air. "Congratulations, you have unlocked the second clue. Time is a construct, but the exit is real. Seek the heart of the hotel to find your way out." The platform began to rise, lifting them higher and higher until the garden disappeared from view. The air grew colder, and the light dimmed. When the platform finally stopped, they found themselves in a dark, cavernous space. Emma shivered. "Where are we now?" Jack pointed to a sign on the wall. "Floor 13, the forgotten basement." The forgotten basement. The air in the forgotten basement was thick with dust and the scent of mildew. The walls were made of rough stone, and the floor was littered with broken furniture, old crates, and piles of forgotten belongings. The only light came from a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. Emma coughed, waving a hand in front of her face to clear the dust. "This place gives me the creeps. Why would the hotel even have a basement like this?" Jack shone his phone's flashlight around the room, the beam cutting through the darkness. "I don't think this is a normal basement. Look at the walls, they're covered in symbols." Emma followed the light and saw that the walls were indeed covered in strange, intricate carvings. The symbols seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. Some resembled clocks, while others looked like spirals or labyrinths. In the center of the room was a large, circular door made of iron, its surface covered in more of the same symbols. "That must be the way forward," Jack said, stepping closer to the door. "But how do we open it?" Emma examined the door closely. In the center was a keyhole, but it wasn't shaped like any key they had seen before. It was circular with a series of notches around the edge. "We need another key," she said. "But where do we find it?" As if in response, the flickering bulb above them sparked and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Emma gasped, clutching Jack's arm. "What's happening?" Before Jack could answer, a faint glow began to emanate from the walls. The symbols lit up one by one, forming a pattern that led to a corner of the room. There, half buried under a pile of debris, was a small chest. Emma and Jack hurried over and pulled the chest free. It was old and weathered, with a lock shaped like the keyhole in the door. Jack tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. "Maybe we need to solve another puzzle," Emma said, looking around the room. Her eyes landed on a series of levers and dials embedded in the wall near the door. "Over there." They approached the wall and saw that the levers and dials were labeled with the same symbols as the carvings. Emma studied them carefully, trying to make sense of the patterns. "I think we need to match the symbols on the chest to the ones on the wall." Jack nodded. "Let's try it." They worked together, turning the dials and flipping the levers until the symbols on the wall matched those on the chest. With a loud click, the chest popped open. Inside was a circular key, its surface covered in glowing runes. Emma picked up the key, her hand trembling slightly. "This has to be it." They returned to the iron door and inserted the key. It turned with a satisfying clunk, and the door swung open to reveal a long, dark corridor. They worked together, pressing the panels in the correct sequence. As they did, the machine's movements began to slow, and the core's glow dimmed. Finally, with a loud clang, the machine came to a halt, and the core opened to reveal a swirling portal. The voice spoke again. "Congratulations. You have proven your worth. The exit awaits." Emma and Jack stepped toward the portal, their hearts pounding. But as they reached the threshold, the keeper's voice echoed through the chamber. Are you sure you want to leave? The Grand Eterna offers infinite wonders. Stay, and you will never want for anything. Emma hesitated, glancing at Jack. What if he's right? What if we're giving up something amazing? Jack took her hand, his grip firm. This place isn't real, Emma. It's a trap. We need to go. She nodded, and together they stepped through the portal. The world around them dissolved into light, and for a moment, they felt weightless. Then, with a sudden jolt, they found themselves standing in the hotel lobby. The concierge was there, his too wide smile plastered across his face. Welcome back. I trust you enjoyed your stay. Emma and Jack didn't answer. They simply walked out the front door, into the cool night air. The rain had stopped, and the parking lot was exactly as they had left it. The Grand Eterna loomed behind them, its neon sign flickering weakly. As they drove away, Emma glanced back at the hotel. For a moment, she thought she saw the keeper standing in the window, watching them go. But when she blinked, he was gone. The lingering shadows. Emma and Jack drove in silence, the hum of the car's engine the only sound between them. The Grand Eterna Hotel grew smaller in the rearview mirror, its towering structure eventually disappearing into the night. Yet, despite the distance, the weight of their experience clung to them like a second skin. The hotel's strange, impossible floors, the cryptic clues, and the keeper's unsettling presence lingered in their minds. Do you think we're really out? Emma asked, breaking the silence. She stared out the window, her reflection faint in the glass. It felt too easy at the end. Jack tightened his grip on the steering wheel. I don't know. As they drove away, Emma noticed something strange in the distance. A faint glow, like the neon sign of a hotel, flickered on the horizon. Jack, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you see that? He followed her gaze, his face pale. It can't be. But as they drove closer, the glow grew brighter, and the unmistakable shape of the Grand Eterna Hotel came into view. The neon sign flickered weakly, casting an eerie light on the empty parking lot. No, Jack said, slamming his hands on the steering wheel. This isn't possible. We drove for hours. We're miles away. Emma's heart raced as they pulled into the parking lot. The hotel loomed before them, its infinite floors stretching into the sky. The concierge stood at the entrance, his too wide smile plastered across his face. Welcome back, he said, his voice smooth and unervingly cheerful. We've been expecting you. Emma and Jack stepped out of the car, their legs unsteady. How is this happening? Emma demanded. We left. We escaped. The concierge's smile didn't waver. Did you? Or did you simply find another floor? Jack grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her toward the hotel. We're not going back in there. But as they turned to leave, the parking lot dissolved around them, the trees and road melting into nothingness. They were back in the lobby, the crystal chandeliers casting a cold, glittering light. The keeper appeared before them, his piercing blue eyes filled with a mixture of amusement and pity. You cannot escape the Grand Eterna, he said. Once you enter, you are forever a part of it. Emma's voice trembled with anger and fear. Why are you doing this? What do you want from us? The keeper's expression softened, but only slightly. The hotel is a reflection of your deepest desires and fears. It feeds on them, growing stronger with each guest. You sought adventure, and it gave you infinite wonders. But now it seeks to keep you. Jack stepped forward, his fists clenched. We're not staying. We'll find a way out. The keeper sighed. Very well. But know this, the deeper you go, the harder it will be to leave. The hotel will test you in ways you cannot imagine. With a wave of his hand, the keeper disappeared, and the lobby shifted around them. The walls twisted and turned, the floor tilting at impossible angles. Emma and Jack found themselves standing in a long, narrow hallway lined with doors. Each door was marked with a different symbol, and the air was filled with a faint, haunting melody. Emma grabbed Jack's arm. What do we do now? Jack took a deep breath, his determination unwavering. We keep going. We'll find the real exit, no matter what it takes. They began to walk down the hallway, the doors opening and closing on their own as they passed. Each door revealed a glimpse of a different floor, a library filled with books that whispered secrets, a ballroom where ghostly figures danced, and a garden where the flowers sang. Finally, they reached a door marked with a single symbol, a spiral. Emma recognized it from the carvings in the forgotten basement. She pushed the door open, and they stepped into a small, circular room. In the center was a pedestal with a glowing orb, just like the one they had found in the sunken city. As they approached the orb, the keeper's voice echoed through the room. "This is your final test." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, but she nodded. Together, they reached out and touched the orb. The light enveloped them, and they felt a strange, pulling sensation, as if something was being torn away. When the light faded, they were standing outside the hotel, the cool night air washing over them. The Grand Eterna loomed behind them, its neon sign flickering weakly. But this time it felt different. The hotel no longer called to them, no longer pulled at their minds. Emma took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in days. "Is it over?" Jack squeezed her hand. "I think so, but we should never come back here." As they walked away, the hotel's glow faded into the distance. But in the shadows, the keeper watched them go, his too wide smile lingering in the darkness.